Welcome to Tradies Who Lead, the podcast about everyday leadership for everyday legends. I'm Ashley Baltecki, a diesel mechanic by trade and your host. In this podcast, we hear from trade leaders from all industries and job titles about how they show up as everyday leaders so that we can learn from them and level up our leadership skills on site. In this episode, we dive into how to get the best out of your team and why business owners and leaders must evolve with the changing expectations of both their people and their customers. Today, we're joined by Kosta Kantilaftis, a second-generation technician, workshop owner, and automotive industry advocate with nearly 2 decades of experience. After starting his first business at 19, he now leads Dulwich Hill Automotive, Smart Mechanic Sydney, and co-founded the Garage Network, which is a nationwide community of almost 6,000 technicians and workshop owners. Passionate about lifting the capabilities of automotive industries, Kosta champions better training, stronger communication, and genuine support for both technicians and workshop owners. With a focus on practical leadership and developing people, Kosta invests heavily in building high-performing teams, mentoring apprentices, and designing systems that bring clarity and consistency to workshop operations. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today, Kosta.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
To get started, what does leadership mean to you?
Wow, what a question to start with. You don't start lightly, do you? Well, I think leadership, which for me, which I think probably got really wrong in my early stage of leadership, it's not a hierarchy of, hey, I'm the boss. It's more of a responsibility, and it's a responsibility to give a lot of clarity, maybe some clear standards and also expectations to those that you're leading. Probably the most important part, which I'm pretty passionate about, is making sure you create an environment where the next generation or the people that you are leading have the opportunity to become leaders themselves and to grow. And obviously, in my field as an automotive technician, I not only grow as technicians and become the best version of that, but also become better people as well. And that's my thought of leadership and what it means to me.
There's so many threads and conversations we could
Where do we
go
start?
from there. I really love, though, that you acknowledge that sense of hierarchy, because I had a very similar experience that I definitely thought leadership was about, it's the title, so it's the hierarchy, so you're thinking about the food chain and, well, that's not my job, that's not my responsibility. But there's a really human factor in it in terms of responsibility for people but also for the impact we have on people, which isn't necessarily once we have that formal leadership title. But where did that journey begin? Like, what was the turning point for you where you started to go, maybe this idea of hierarchy isn't really helping me as a leader?
Yeah, look, so I started business quite young. So I started my first automotive repair shop when I was 19. So really thrown into a deep end of having to learn how to become a leader really fast. I think for the first couple of years at least, or several years I'd say, really fumbled our way through calling myself a business owner, which was probably a very loose term at the time, learning along the way as well. And then quite quickly, we were pretty fortunate when I started, hiring people and probably playing the hierarchy card rather than the leadership card. We were real tight-knit, then slowly started to realize that if I really want true freedom, which is what for me business is, all about creating a freedom for yourself, I need to find a way where I don't have to be involved in every single decision being made. And with hierarchy, for me, was I was getting stuck in that situation where although everyone knew what to do, no one would make a call unless they ran it by boss man, right? And I quickly learned, well, how do we get over that? Is lead them to make their own decisions and free think, which as a business owner whose ass is on the line and, it all sort of the buck stops with you, is quite hard to let go and allow others to make decisions initially. But I think it was the best thing that I could have done was put that sort of trust and faith in the team around me and to let them make some decisions that probably better than I would make them because they look at it more matter of fact than emotion. So that was sort of my early journey in leadership.
How did you actually support and coach your team? Like, what actions did you have to start or stop doing to actually allow that dynamic to work where you weren't relied on for those decisions? Because I feel like so many leaders and so many business owners, they have that same challenge. And I imagine there's different approaches to it, but there's still fundamentally some things that, like, if you don't do this, you don't have trust and you don't empower decisions.
Yeah, look, absolutely. So for us, it was super important. We realized that we needed processes. The first several years, it was just really winging it. And every decision was made sort of on the fly, really no process, no standardized procedure for anything. Everyone sort of knew what to do, but everyone sort of did it a little bit differently. So then we started focusing on, let's start looking at what we do on a daily occurrence. Let's build out some processes for the business. And that now becomes our new standard. Then what we realized that once we started having those processes and they were available and everyone could access them at any given time, we got a little bit process crazy and structured everything in a way that, okay, everything gets done the same way. And then after that, it became easy because everyone knew what to do. And we started setting very clear expectation. They've got clear expectations from me and vice versa. And because of that, it becomes much easier to just let them make their own decisions. Like sometimes it's going to go wrong, but in the scheme of things, who cares? Generally, you can fix most things with communication, is what we found. And I'm sure my team will confirm this. I was initially really pedantic on having things exactly right. But then what I started realizing, as long as our process was pretty solid, that there will be the wrong decisions made sometimes based on some variables. But the outcome is generally nowhere near as bad as we think they are, because we can communicate pretty well, either with each other and even with our customers. If we do a boo-boo, we'll put our hand up and say, yep, look, this went wrong, but we have a solution.
I love that you've captured this weird balance that I sometimes reflect on the trade industry and especially larger businesses that are very process heavy. And there is a certain point where you can go too far on process and not allow for the fact that as humans, we can't eliminate mistakes. Like they are a factor of being human. But it sounds like that's something that you embrace quite naturally into, I guess, how the relationship you have with your team and the expectation isn't perfect. Like that's not a reasonable expectation, and you set everyone up for failure. But there's obviously communication and clarity is a really fundamental part of, I guess, how you empower your team and your business to be successful.
It's funny, especially we had a new hire recently and something went a little bit pear-shaped. Look, not really their fault either, but just things didn't work out. And he was almost stressed to let me know. I was like, I don't understand this. It's okay. Big deal. It was almost in shock as to why isn't it a problem? We'll go, well, we're going to fix it. Like, what's the big deal really? It's going to be a couple of extra hours and the customer will be okay. We've got loan cards we can support them with. There really isn't a big problem, but we're going to communicate it. We're going to make sure we're going to discuss it afterwards. Don't get me wrong. We're going to still discuss it after and see how we can avoid it happening. That's a conversation that will happen, but no one's getting yelled at. There's no, you're in the corner. We're all adults. Even though they're young adults, still adults. We're not here to discipline anyone and put them in a corner, which honestly, it allows for our business. It's allowed so much innovation. Like my team, if they've got a solution for something that we've got a process for, they might come up with a better process. Let's change it. That's okay. You find a better way that we can do things and it gets a better outcome for our customer or even for us. Let's do that. I mean, nothing has to, especially in small business, probably much easier than larger corporations and businesses. We do have the flexibility to make change. And if any small business says they don't, it's probably not so truthful to themselves. But we do have the ability to make changes really fast if we choose to. So I think, and having the fresh set of eyes from, again, a younger team, having even a new hire, what a perfect opportunity to create some either better workflows, processes, or even just ideas. And if it goes wrong, it's all right, we fix it.
And that's the beauty of being tradies, I think, sometimes too. Now, I know you're a really big advocate for the industry and not just the people in it. And you co-founded the Garage Network, which has over 6,000 technicians and business owners. Is it around Australia that are all connected in this network to kind of, I guess, embrace this desire to be better businesses, better technicians, a better industry? What kind of leadership do you see in that network?
Oh, it is amazing. So I always get excited when I see our network and even our industry sort of band together. In so many cases, you'll see somebody ask a question, whether it be around leadership, whether it be around business or technical, and you'll see guys that are really seasoned, have been through the trenches for a long time, helping someone who's just fresh in the industry. We have absolutely paired up some amazing mentors with new business owners, and you see them as in bone they build with each other. And all it really does, it really creates a better industry in the sense of we're all sort of starts, all boats float. I can't even say the saying correctly, but we all elevate together. And there's definitely a lot of that happening. I think the times have changed from, if we look at, the generation before us, where our skill sets and our business ethics and how we operate business was all a secret, and we've got to really safeguard this. Definitely not the way I'm seeing things within our network, which is amazing to see. And it looks like, we have members sometimes helping each other out at ridiculous hour at night, whether it be phone call, or even just popping, giving them a hand, but even just being some support, because as independent repairers, which a lot of our members are, it can definitely be a bit of a lonely place when the buck stops with you and you've got no one else to sort of get guidance or leadership from. But we definitely see a lot of sort of peer-to-peer support and mentoring.
There's definitely a lot of challenges across our trade sector in the automotive space that is shared across a lot of the trade sectors around the changing technology and customer expectations, and definitely this ongoing pressure of not quite having enough people to get the work done as an industry and then as individual businesses. When it comes to the people skills or the mindset shifts that we need to have as an industry or as individuals so that we can all succeed, what does that look like, or what have you seen work from the network or from your own team and your own business experience?
Yeah, that's absolutely is a changing industry. And a couple of things that we've seen work really well is the workshops that are staying up to date in their training, embracing new technology, even with a lot of AI integration into a lot of the, I would say, the more successfully run repair shops are generally investing pretty hard in some AI technology within the workshop, whether that's around customer communication, whether it's around quoting, so they get a systemized and a process-based outcome every single time. And in and around, obviously, technology of vehicle, as you probably know, repairing a modern equipment or vehicle in 2025 is also very different to repairing a vehicle in the 1990s. Not only tooling has changed, the environment's changed. And in a lot of cases, we're expecting the people to be the same that's within them. I know my techs are pretty savvy when it comes to technology. They also like the modern day creature comforts. You know, they like a clean workshop. They like a nice lunchroom they can actually sit in properly and put the AC on for a bit. They're like a clean bathroom. So we start to see that sort of trickle down across the whole workshop, not on the floor, but even how the office is presented. So we're definitely seeing a lot of that sort of, I wouldn't call it technology, but the evolution of what's expected by us. Even our customers changed as well. Like they expect fast response times, probably don't want a phone call, they want an SMS. So there's so many changes that need to happen that we need to adapt to. Like it's either do that or be left behind, which looks never too late to catch up, but you can be left behind very quick.
And is that something that you find even within your own team, being a role model for embracing change and having, I guess, a resilient mindset to not feel set back or overwhelmed by how quickly things can move, that's a way that can lead other businesses to lift up the industry?
I think at some point you've got to decide whether you're going to change with the times, or are you just going to wait out your time? Because it's going to be one of two things. It's either you're going to evolve with the times and keep up to date and run a business for a prolonged time, even potentially a business that's actually sellable in 5, 10, 15 years time. And hopefully someone within your team is the one that then is your successor and takes over and keeps that business running. Or you can, I'm not going to say accept defeat, but you can accept the fact that I'm going to do this for 5 or 10 years and I'm done. I think it's a bit of a wasted opportunity if people decide to take that avenue, but absolutely their decision, because I do understand business is hard, and especially when you've been probably, and I'll always refer this back to the older generations. They've gone through some pretty weird, wacky changes over the last 30 years. To ask them to evolve again is a big ask, but that's my perspective. That's when the next generation needs to be stepping in. And that's where it's our responsibility to make sure we've empowered them with enough knowledge, skill, and also confidence to maybe take on your business down the track and maybe lift it to its next level and keep it running for the next 20 years. And then they can hand it down. That's my optimistic goal in the end, is to make sure that that keeps happening through generations, and not just my business, but everyone's business. I want all automotive independent repair shops to be successful.
I'm a fellow optimist, so you don't, don't have to preach that to me. What I find interesting though, you talk about how I guess there's strengths that a new generation and the new workforce are going to bring into the workplace, and where I guess there's an older generation who they have the experience, they've been in the industry for years, they've probably come under nearly every technical problem under the sun, that there's different strengths and weaknesses in that, and as a team it can obviously create a stronger team for that diversity. But what the new generation also brings is, and you kind of highlighted it a little bit with the changing expectations of smoko rooms and like what the workshop facility is like, but what they also bring is a very different expectation of how they feel in a workplace. And a lot of that hasn't got to do with the technical skills. So how do you see that through your business or the network in terms of how those young people are being leaders for change in workplaces, but also how businesses are adapting to what's sometimes perceived as higher expectations, but ultimately just the desire to feel good in a workplace.
I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges for a lot of workshops, because there's a lot of expectation on, so especially small business owners, where we don't have the support when we go up the chain, right? It's us. There's the expectation to, obviously keep our people trained. There's an expectation to make sure that they've got all the amenities they need, but we've got to make sure they're happy, right? And we have a lot of touch points throughout our days, and we make sure that everyone's happy, comfortable, and everything they need. We've got a very big open door policy, and if they need to speak to someone, they can tell us, and we can organise that for them as well. But I've always made a very clear goal with all of our staff. If one of us comes in to work one day and we don't want to be there, we can absolutely have a conversation about how we don't have to be there for the day, because I think that we all can have good days, bad days. I think that as an industry, we probably don't do very well with accepting the fact that people are different. Some people react to certain situations in very different ways as well. Some people are okay to just pull the socks up and carry on. Some people need time to process, and it's sometimes hard to even know which one they are. So I think that there's obviously, it's a challenge. I think communicating, being aware of your surroundings, trying some form of emotional intelligence, which has to happen with leadership. Unfortunately, you have to be somewhat aware of what's going on with your people as well. It can definitely be hard, but it's definitely an important factor of leadership.
Any business owners listening, or anyone who's been around small business, like the impact of someone being away from work in a small business is much more significant than
Massive.
One person in a much bigger team. So it's really interesting to hear that for you as a small business, that even though in the short term, maybe not having someone in the workplace is something that you're able to support, because there's an understanding of there's safety concerns, there's also long-term well-being, like we might lose them today, but they'll be better for the next 3 weeks instead of slowly declining for 3 weeks and not being productive. And
100%.
There's so many pros and cons, and every person is so different. And one of my favorite quotes about leadership, I think it was in the book Radical Candor, and it talks about the fact that so many managers get frustrated, or leaders at any level, about the emotional workload of being a leader, but it's the definition of having that responsibility for other people. And it is something, it's language that isn't spoken about in the trades at all, and it is the hardest part of the job. And I think with the generational shift and how quickly things change now, it's really bringing that challenge to the forefront of business now, that this people factor is actually the hardest part of the job for many people, like you said.
100%. So I'm actually a second generation technician, right? So my dad was a mechanic as well, and so I grew up in those workshop environments from a very young age. I mean, every school holidays from the age of 6 on. So this was before child labor laws were a thing. So please don't go investigating. Found a business perfect. But I grew up in those environments, right? And it's definitely a different place. Now, I was probably very, very lucky that my old man actually ran his own business for a while. Massive team, had a pretty big team for his time, especially as an independent. And he absolutely treated that as a family, right? Now, that probably is what makes me, how I look at it, my team as well. But I definitely know that I've worked with other people that have been to different, that same generation, pre, they don't really get it, because they were born in a different time, right? It was pull your socks up and get on with it, because there's no one here to save you in a lot of cases, right? So unfortunately, they had no opportunity to even voice feelings and opinions, and they just didn't have that chance, right? Now, does that make them better or worse? No, it doesn't. It just makes them different. It just means we have to adjust with the times, just how we adjust. So we've adjusted for technology, right? We have to adjust for the people as well. The customers are different. The people within the business is different. It just becomes a level of adapting to what we're dealing with, which is, again, it's what we do as small business owners.
And the culture of a team it sounds like quite a technical thing, but at the end of the day, it's really about the everyday actions of everyone in a team. So what are some practical tools you use as a business owner to kind of yourself have a positive impact on culture, or even help your team understand the impact they have on the team culture as well?
Yeah, look, I think that culture, again, it is technical, but it's not really something that's tangible. That's what I found. It's generally something that you can feel. So we feel it when we come to the workshop that we've got a good culture. The guys and the girls, when we eventually hire one, have a opportunity to be comfortable, and if they need anything, they can talk about it We don't mind if people want to make decisions through the business, and we don't obviously get people into any sort of weird positions if wrong decisions are made. And I think that it's important as leaders we take that on.
But it's such a big part of culture, and I think that the ability to have a safe space to make mistakes, it's something that isn't a common experience, unfortunately, in the trades, because we are under so much pressure. Everything costs money, everything's fixable, and that's the beauty of the industries we work in. But that doesn't mean that as leaders, that leaders know how to regulate their own emotions in that situation to go, okay, yes, this is frustrating, and yes, this is an issue, but also it's so easy to forget when we were the apprentice who made the mistake, and easy to forget what it is like to be that person who's never done something before. And sometimes we just can't figure things out on our own. And I think the fact that you have a team that there's trust to say, hey, I made this mistake, and that's something that as a leader, you're able to acknowledge that you need to create that safe space, is a very specific way that you would be creating a culture where people feel safe to innovate and it maybe not go right, so that maybe one day that innovation goes great, because there is that opportunity to make mistakes, be safe in making that mistake, learn from it, and continue to grow as technicians.
I guess this could come into the culture point of view. We try really hard to ensure that we understand their goals. Like when people get onboarded, which I think most businesses should be doing this, is understanding where they want to be, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. Because most businesses, at least that are run okay, can support a lot of people's goals, whether it be long-term or short-term. And we try to get a bit of a goal alignment between their goals, business goals, and then we work together on them. That way everyone sort of wins and everyone in the outcome reaches their goals. I think that helps a bit with our culture as well, because we all know what we're sort of striving for. There's no guesswork. We try to meet the expectations that we set, and we generally do. Which I think then, again, it comes back to a support thing and knowing that, what we tell them we're going to do, we do. We don't just sort of say things and then find ways to wiggle our ways out of it because they've actually achieved what we wanted them to. So now we've got to pay the piper, which, we try our best to make sure that gets all goals are achieved.
It's such a simple thing, doing what you say you're going to do, but not doing it is the quickest way to break trust in any team. So 100%. There's no glazing over that. While it seems like a small and insignificant detail, it's like the foundation of trust in every team. The final question I ask all my guests is, when you're giving advice to whether they're apprentices, tradies, business owners, what advice would you give them about how they can show up as a leader, whatever place they're at in their career?
Accountability. So be accountable for your actions. If you make the wrong call, decision, be okay with it and voice it. I think there's a lot of strength in owning when you also do the wrong thing. I don't know, it might be hard from the leadership point of view, but it's actually okay even for us to make, again, even, we keep saying leadership and all this sort of stuff, but I'm still fumbling my way through it. I'm still learning, right? I definitely have made wrong calls or decisions and probably not treated people the way I probably should have. We learn from it and we accept the fact that we did wrong, and how do we make it better next time? How do we not fall back into that trap? So I think accountability is a massive factor for someone that wants to become a leader one day.
I love that, because I've been thinking a lot about the fact that leadership is a little bit of mindset and it's a little bit of practice. Like it's a practice every day to choose to show up and to be courageous as well. It takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable, to put yourself out there, to take those risks of, I'm leading a team, I'm leading people, I'm trying to impact the culture of my team around me, even as an apprentice. So thank you so much for everything you shared, Kosta. It's been great to hear about community and business and everything you've learned on your journey as a leader. So without a doubt, I know the listeners and myself have taken a lot away from this chat.
Thank you so much, Ash. Much appreciate your work, and thanks for putting a great platform for people to listen to.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like it, subscribe to Tradies Who Lead, or follow us on socials for more content from your favourite guests. Thanks for joining me again. We'll be back with another everyday legend to shed light on what leadership looks like in the trades in another 2 weeks.